Oh,
There
okay.
we go.
All righty. Well, I'm going to give a little introduction here. This is our 9th roundtable.
Wow.
So we've covered a lot of womb wisdom material. I want to just say something about our current situation, that if we go with the view that we're currently breaking free of the crumbling dominator system, then this is the perfect time to step into our womb power to ensoul the world, because isn't there freedom in that chaos that we can somehow get through?
Mm-hmm.
So for any new listeners, I want to just recap that, you know, our discoveries of the womb from different sources. The womb carries 10 times more soul energy than a man does. The man carries the spirit, the woman carries the soul. So, you know, we have amazing potential we're not really using enough. So the womb is the home of the cosmic soul, and there's a huge difference, of course, that I had to learn what's the difference between cosmic soul and personal soul. So cosmic soul, of course, is Sophia. So that's a huge subject. And then the blood masteries it gets into. So that's kind of what we're doing, part of it. There's so many topics. The other thing I wanted to mention globally was, you know, why is this current system pushing pharma and artificial enhancements when it's obvious that we're not using our own natural systems to their full capacity anyway, like as we once did? Such things like levitation and psychic ability and parthenogenesis and seeing in the dark, you know. So that was just a point I thought, like as an overview. The other thing I wanted to mention was that, and that I think this will lead into Karen's, and the three of us are going to share about the relation of gold. Karen's done some work on that. The relation of gold to the womb and to the inner, the torus energies that we pick up in our wombs, in the horizontal energies. I had another psychic drop by, Tara, who is from the reserve, and she's full-blooded Mohawk. Right. And you know what the first thing she said when she came onto my property was, what? Buffalo woman. Mm-hmm. I'm being told to tell you that, you know, you're guided by the buffalo women. So I did that drawing.
And then, wow, I love that. And what, you had done it before, or it's
no, I did it after.
Okay, fantastic.
And you know, it was only recently I learned that through Marcine that the white buffalo woman and Jigonsaseh are maybe one. They're connected.
Okay.
So that felt like real support for this work. And
yeah, and I love White Buffalo Woman. And I've always felt so connected to that story, and read it before. And my teacher, Araya, used to come from that Lakota tradition, right? Part of her teachings were from Lakota, and that's what that's from. So, yeah, White Buffalo Woman. Yeah, and there has been white buffalo being born. You know about that. That was like a big, rare thing.
Yeah.
White buffalo, right? Yeah.
So it definitely looks like it is connected to the womb mysteries.
Okay, right. Well, you know, I have a native pipe, right? So when you bring the pipe together, you know, you say, bringing this together in the sacred marriage, you know, the bowl is the feminine and the pipe is the masculine, and bring them together, right? So there's always that combining of those, and it's horizontal, right? Energies, right? So,
yeah. Well, maybe you can bring it next
time.
Upwards. The what?
And the smoke goes upwards.
Yes.
It's horizontal, energies, and the smoke goes upwards. That's very interesting.
Yeah. Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's wonderful. That's beautiful.
Yeah. That was just last week.
Wow. Great.
So what I would like to do is just do a little bit of a review of the last round table, which was really about stone boats and the existence of stone boats all around the world.
Right.
Okay.
And I forgot to mention the last time we were together that when I was in New Zealand, I encountered stone boats there. Stone boats were carriers of gods and goddesses from the sky realm to New Zealand. And they were still on beaches, these large stone formations. And the other thing I wanted to mention too was the use of the boat as a very powerful image. Of course, in the Egyptian stories of the afterlife, the souls are ferried on a boat. Right. But one of the discoveries that was made in the Valley of the Kings, I don't know when it was made, but there was a discovery made of giant boats. I mean, 60 feet long.
Right.
And these were connected with, Graham Hancock believes, with some of the very ancient structures found in the Valley of the Kings.
Wow. Okay. Great. I love Graham Hancock too. Yeah.
And just further to that, Graham Hancock's last book that he wrote, I've got it here, America Before, the key to the key to Earth's lost civilization. He actually really delves into the mound builders, the mound cultures, and the significance of those, and the antiquity of these places. Some of them really predate Stonehenge and even the older site that's been found up in the Hebrides and also or the Orkneys, the Orkney Island one, which is supposed to be the oldest one in Great Britain, but he says they're actually older than that.
Wow.
The mound culture, the mound builders.
What about Serpent Mound? Does that come into that?
Yes, he talks about that in this book. He actually says that the prevalence of these mounds and stone circles and other structures has been so underplayed in North America and South America.
Yeah.
Partly because nobody valued the culture of the First Nations people.
And
the settlers did not value the culture. So they just dismissed it, or they tried, in the early part of the 20th century, they were trying to convince everyone that these were just natural formations and things like that. So there has been a tendency to dismiss the First Nations cultures and their accomplishments. And certainly that's part of the conspiracy, if you will. And also these things were in the way of progress and development. So they ended up being, turned over and unearthed. But there are still so many of them.
Why then were they not destroyed in other countries? Because isn't there the same overlay where there was a disrespect for what came before?
No, not to the same extent, because you have to remember in England, for instance, with Stonehenge, there is a sense of this is their ancient lineage. They are proud of it. They think that it's the great observatory of the world. There's a lot of nationalism that came to be like from the 19th century on, a lot of nationalism that came to be associated with Stonehenge.
But they weren't white people, probably.
They were thought of as being white.
Okay, there's the.
Well, aren't they ancient Druids? They were European, I assume.
It would have been European, probably, of some sort. I mean, who knows we don't know what people look like. Right. Race is a strange, as we all know, is a bit of a strange concept.
Well, yeah, because they talk about, like Maria Wheatley says that under Stonehenge, there's the long skulls are there, and there's giants there, and there's all kinds of races there.
Right.
If you want to call them races.
Like in Sardinia, right, where we were all wanting to go, right? There was all these ancient temples there too, and whatnot. Yeah.
Right. But remember many years ago, Maureen, I got the message before we were planning to go to Ireland that we had to do the work here first.
Okay, right.
This is part of it.
We're doing it now.
Yes, it is part of it is the reclamation of our consciousness of these places, and that the cultures that were here before contact, would want to call it that. I don't even like to use that, because there was definitely cross-cultural contact in the aeons prior to the advent of Christopher Columbus, or whoever, Jacques Cartier. I mean, it's just that that particular contact caused a lot of destruction. But it's just awareness, the consciousness of the strength of these cultures and their connection to the stars, their bringing of the star energies into the earth, their ability to build things on a large scale, to work with stone that, defies the imagination even of modern human beings. So it's the consciousness of that, and that was here in North America. The other thing I've uncovered in my research too is that there was a lot of transatlantic travel between Hibernian sources, places of Hibernia, ancient Hibernia, which were quite widespread, into North America to visit with the peoples living here, because they had the mysteries and the secrets of healing. They knew the mysteries of the physical body. North America is the place of the mysteries of the physical body.
Okay. Oh, well, then that fits that we're doing the womb technology.
Yeah. So I think we're being guided. You, particularly Maureen, have been guided to that, because that is one of the mysteries of the physical body. And North America and also South America were part of all of that. The Americas were visited, and there were many cross-Atlantic, just from the Hibernian places. There was a lot of cross-Atlantic travel, sharing of mysteries with one another.
I still have that drawing I did for you anytime
That's right.
you want it.
That's right. And so, like, the Hibernians were able to bring mysteries of polarity. Like they'd done a lot, they delved a lot into the mysteries of polarity, but they really needed to know the mysteries of healing and the physical body. So this is where they received that learning from the Americas. Yeah.
Can I ask, sorry, interrupt, like, where did you say that this information came from, that North America is designated for that?
This I got through there was a work of a clairvoyant by the name of T.H. Meyer, Meyer. And he was an anthroposophist as well, but he was sort of Steiner, but he was not in the mainstream of it. He was sort of fringy. Just like today, Ari Thorson is. Who works a lot with elemental beings and works with the tree realms. So, there are people who, I call them the Fintorn of the anthroposophical world. They work with the earth energies. They're more willing to work with the earth energies, whereas anthroposophy started out as a thinking movement, a movement of clear thinking. These are people who now are saying thinking is not enough. We have to work actively with the earth and the earth intelligence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Karen,
Meyer was one of those.
Helen will be really, important for her to hear this, because she's from anthropophagy, but she's also now doing physical work with the body. So
yeah,
she has to somehow balance that.
Yeah. So it's interesting that those. Now, getting back to the stone boat, why were these boats made of stone? That's the question. Why was it important that they were made of stone? They could have been made of wood. They could have been made of you know, who knows what else? Crystals or whatever, but no, they were made of stone. And the reason is that because they were a sign, in a sense, that the person who was able to sail the boat was actually in the lineage of the stone ones, the stone people, right? The stone people. And these were, I'm just going to make sure I've got this wording correctly. These were the ancient ones of the planet, containing knowledge of the world and its changes. So they almost had like a record of everything. All right. They held the record of the entire biography, if you will, of the earth.
Stone people.
Yes. And they were associated with the north on the medicine wheel, which is also the white buffalo woman. So they're connected with the ancestors. So these are the stone people, and they're all around the world. They're not just in North America, they're everywhere. I mean, they were stone people in New Zealand. That was one of the branches of the Waitaha. There's stone people in Europe. There were stone people in Europe. A lot of them were centered around Tartary, Siberia.
Oh.
Okay, so there were stone people everywhere. But this is why it's important that the boat is made of stone, because it shows this connection with the ancestors and with the biography of the earth. Okay. And the very important thing is that these stone people did not have karma. Okay. That they had been able to integrate and deal with their I called it the double last time, but they didn't have the same types of negativity that we store in our own arterial blood and in our own bodies, right?
That's the quality of the womb blood.
Right. They have the quality of the womb blood.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. They don't have the arterial blood quality. They don't carry the karma. Okay.
Well, that means they're enlightened.
Yes. And so exactly. They actually carry what human beings were intended to be before they were tinkered with.
This all sounds very true.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and they also carry, they're etheric beings. Okay. They can relate directly to the world through the etheric. Their false egos and all this other sorts of things don't get in the way of that. They're able to access it. This is the womb blood people. They're able to access the horizontal energies, the etheric energies of the earth easily and readily. They're able to align themselves to the etheric and the etheric realm. And they also have what's gold process in their blood. The gold process, which is a sun process. Okay, it comes from the sun.
Right.
And gold is so important because when you even think about gold, I mean, gold has this balances this polarity between levity and gravity. All right. It's very malleable. It doesn't hold on to itself, but at the same time, it's found in great depths in the earth. And so it's got this, it's known in this type of thinking as its signature is this balance between levity and gravity. All right. And so it's able to hold polarities without falling into one or the other.
So
it holds all potential then. It holds all potential. It hasn't fallen into one of the poles. So these stone people, and that's why the stone boat is connected with that image. And people who would have heard of Daganawida coming in a stone boat would immediately have thought of the stone people, of the stone lineage. And that's true all across the world, because as I said last time, the stone boats are found everywhere.
So
It's
what?
a signifier. It's a signifier.
It's a signifier, exactly. Thank you, Tara. Yes, it is.
So you mean it's like what the peacemakers were calling in were the old records of the earth via these, but not literally stone people, not real, but no, but okay, so would the peacemakers be stone people?
Well, that's the question. Is Jigonsaseh, because of the nature of his birth, is he a stone person?
Well, all
With his,
five of them, I think.
with his two rows of teeth, and what is, because if he were conceived parthenogenetically, genetically, then what is he one of these people? Is he one of the stone people? Someone who, I mean, I hate to use this type of language, but it's something people would probably understand, that he doesn't have the mark of sin on him. Okay. His karma has not blinded him to the ability to be in union and connection with the earth energies. So
I understand what you're saying.
okay.
You're talking about it from a Christian point of view, like you're not born in sin. That would be the right?
No,
Okay.
I'm not talking about that, but I'm using
Okay.
that language because sometimes people who might be listening to this might know, might recognize or relate to that. But he does not have those sorts of tendencies to seek only for his own ego.
Okay, well,
His
if I
own
can,
ego.
oh, sorry. So I really feel that he was born by two virgin births, just like the Christian story.
Right.
And that makes him on much deeper level than a single virgin birth.
Right.
So I think what you're saying is, yeah, he's one of the, like the womb time too is really way more powerful.
See, some people might call him an avatar, or they might call him something else, but I like to use the language stone people, because to me it relates more directly to how he appears in a stone boat. And that there is this lineage of stone people who carry the memory of the earth, who actually could, because of carrying that story and actually carrying it in their body, could unify human beings, help them forget their ego preoccupations and return to source. Not only in his word, but also in his actions and in his very being, he would carry that capability. So he was a peacemaker.
Well, you know, when I did my Native American training, and we were trained to do sweat lodges, you know, when you go to pick rocks, and my teacher always referred to the rocks as stone people, because they're record holders and that they were alive. They had spirits. They're just on a different timeline. You know, millions of years is like, 2 days to us. But that's where you would go and you would listen to the rocks. You'd ask their permission. You'd leave tobacco or cornmeal, and they would be there holding the energy, heating up for the sweat lodge. They're an integral part of it, right? So, if you go to Grand Canyon, you look in the Grand Canyon, and you go, oh my God, this is 2 billion years old. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, you get that sense of why it's so awesome, or anywhere in the world, So, yeah, I would think that it's a very powerful, like a language, right? Just to say, the stone people would understand that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that they really are still among us. This is all around us. It's still here.
Mm-hmm.
If we had the alignment of heart, and if we were working with, had our womb and our heart connected, we could communicate with that. We could have access to that stone people lineage from the very rocks and stones around us.
Right.
Because they all carry it.
Right.
But human beings had lost that capability, with the exceptions of his mother and his grandmother. They had lost that capability at the time of Jigonsaseh's coming, and so he had to come as a representation of that wisdom among them as a human being.
Yeah.
So that the only reason I bring this up is I just want, I had the curious question was, why was it a stone boat? And of course, one of the things that the stone people's technology is that they literally could make stone porous. They could make it spirit filled again, or at least turn on that spirit aspect, which then would allow them to levitate the stones. And the Tartary stream of Hibernia was very good at that. They were builders. And sometimes they're known as giants because they were big, some of them, but there also is another group, as you know, and I can't remember their name, the Tinglet, is it? In the Arctic.
Tinglet, yeah.
In the Arctic, who were actually quite small.
Yes.
But the Inuit recognized them as people who could lift stone and move stones.
Yes.
And in fact, the inukshuks are actually, in a way, some people say, are a memory of the Tinglet.
That's what the little kids would tell me up there even.
Okay, there you go.
So they didn't have to be giants. It wasn't that they were very, see, that's again a materialization in a way of something, although there were giants, we know there were. But the thing was that it wasn't so much their physical size that determined it, it was their alignment of their heart to the etheric, with the etheric of the earth, and their ability to clear away the karma stuff, so that they had that open access. They were able to work with the stone in a way that we don't understand today. And, you know, I forget the name of the place down in South America, Ayahuasca, is it Ayahuasca? I forget the name of it, but it's got these gigantic stones and they're built so closely together, you can't even put a piece of paper between them. And they fit perfectly. And somebody tries to say that, you know, this was built in 1300 AD or, you know, CE. And you're like going, no, I don't think so. So, you know, these are stone people. And of course, Quetzalcoatl was connected with this as well, because he probably was a stone person in his own way too. You know, so
how is Quetzalcoatl connected to that?
Well, he came as a type of peacemaker also.
Okay.
And he came with a message to try and unite people. And of course, that message made him very unpopular, just like it did with Daganoweda amongst the warriors and the people who were invested in the military industrial complex of their age. And they, you know, they drove him out. They drove him out eventually.
But he's also associated with a real person.
He is. He is a real person. Yeah, and that's the interesting thing about these. Over time, people become like, you know, you see this with Jesus too. They become only gods, right? But they were people. They were human beings. They were real human beings. But because of, I hate this, go back to this, because of the manner of their birth and their conception, so I should say conception first and birth, and the way they were held in the mother's womb as part of that process, they were able to carry in with them the stone lineage.
Of course. So that's how it connects with parthenogenesis then.
In fact, you can't have, as far as I could see, you would not be able to have a genuine stone people teacher without that process.
Exactly, because they don't carry karma or ancestral blood.
So that would be like an enlightened being, right?
Exactly.
Like a Buddha or
But it's interesting. It's like they come in from another sphere. They come in from a sphere where they don't have to pass through all the different planets. They come in through a gold process. That's what they're receiving. That's what they're receiving from their mother's blood in the womb. They're receiving a gold process.
And what's that?
Well, it's a process of the sun, right?
Okay.
So that's why in some of these pictures of the parthenogenesis of Mary, you see her actually carrying a son. And some people say, oh, that's because it's Jesus is the son, S-O-N. He's the son. And this was like, this heliocentric thing. And it was trying to blend it in with the Romans and all this kind of stuff. But actually, no, it has to do with the fact that she was able to carry the son in her womb.
Here I have a picture to illustrate that. You see, she's carrying the sun.
Oh, is
And-
that the sun? Okay.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
she carries the sun.
He carries the earth and she carries the sun. I
Wait,
love this. It's right in
Jesus
my kitchen.
Wait, Jesus carries the earth and she carries the sun?
Yeah.
That's from
Okay.
Chartres, isn't it?
Huh?
Okay.
That's from Chart. Yeah, I saw it
Hmm.
before I knew anything.
Okay. Interesting.
So the feminine carries the sun
Hmm.
in the womb, is able to do that because of her alignment between her heart forces and the womb, which is what this whole technology has been about, which Maureen has been, the tree of life and all these things we've been talking about over these months, that she is able to carry that sun in her womb. Whereas if we tried to do that, which we couldn't, but I'm just saying, we need to have a lot of lunar forces in our wombs in order to carry a child to gestation today, or carry a child through gestation.
What,
We need a lot of, pardon?
more so? than
What do you
before?
mean by that, Karen?
Well, it's what's in the placenta. Okay, and I was going to get into this whole thing about what's in the, and I'm really sorry. I need to talk to Maureen because my drawings are so terrible.
I don't get
Okay.
it.
All right, and it's not going to work because it's too difficult. Okay, but let me go through one thing at a time because I actually would need to. I'd like to see it with but the placenta holds the spirit self of the child in the womb.
Okay.
While all these little cells are being put together inside, within it. Okay. And all of that movement for the cell production of the cells is actually coming from the uterine wall. Okay. The placenta is actually protecting the and holds the spirit being of the child around all of that, around all of those cells that are forming and all this kind of thing. There is energy that's coming in from the interior of the womb to act upon those cells. And that's through the amnion, through the amniotic sac. And then there is energy coming in from the mother's side, okay, or what we call the bloodstream side of the mother, which has to do with the earth energies. The amnion carries cosmic formative forces. And I think it's called the altonoid. The altonoid, which is closest to the uterine wall, is taking in nutrients from the mother. Okay, and that eventually becomes the yolk sac. And all this is happening around the cells, which are going to be the physical body that is being formed within these containers. All right. Now, part of what's happening is, as part of the mother who carries the sun, okay, can bring the gold forces directly in from her blood to nourish the child, to connect them to the earth with the gold process, Whereas those of us who have not done the work of aligning the heart and the womb, we are bringing in other aspects as well, including things from the moon. And the moon is where the child picks up the karma. Okay, this is very, very dangerously simplistic, I'm sorry to say, but I'm just saying that. Okay, so these, like what you see in the Chartres, the woman who carries the sun, okay, is able to give an earthly life to the child that is that is a direct line without all the karma.
That's
Okay.
another description of parthenogenesis. That's amazing.
Well, yeah, it is. It is parthenogenesis because there's no other element involved with it.
Yeah.
There can't be.
No.
Yeah. Okay. So there's no sperm involved or whatever. Okay. Because she is able to, what the sperm really serves to do is to set the egg in motion. The egg are actually amongst the oldest cells that a human being develops. They're very ancient, like in terms of our embryonic development, but they have a tendency to be very static. Okay. And what the sperm really serves to do is to get it moving. Okay.
It's like a catalyst.
It's a catalyst, right? And so, but with these particular beings who conceive with parthenogenesis, they can get it moving themselves.
How, I wonder, do they do that?
Well, I
think
think
the breath of fire, I wonder, or something.
they bring the fire in, but they also actually, they're able to make use of that torus. They're able to make use of the horizontal energies to get the momentum and the movement going within their own fallopian tubes.
Right.
Now, that was the other thing I wanted to mention to you too, that it's really important that we not just think of all of this as only the womb space. We also have to think of the ovaries as well as part of all of this.
Right.
And that's why in some of these ancient drawings, which I don't have to show you here, it's actually shown as a 3. There's a larger third at the bottom, like this. And then there's 2 smaller circles on either side.
Right.
So that really is the ovaries in connection with the womb. They're both important. But the ovaries basically hold these very ancient cells, which are the eggs. And
I wonder why they're so far on the outside.
Well, that's a good, all this is very interesting because this is a whole field which is sadly not been looked at very much, which has to do with morphology and how things are formed and why things are the particular shape that they are and why they're positioned in the particular ways that they are. So it is very important. And I do know as well that from my own speech work that this womb ovary complex is very much connected with the larynx. So it's the voice. There's something about the voice of the parthenogenetic woman as well that is part of this process. I don't understand how that happens.
So there's a whole sound healing thing involved then, because I know, I remember when I was in labor, the midwife saying, really open up your throat. Your throat is equivalent to your cervix, right?
Exactly.
Open that up, sound,
Open
scream, yell, whatever. Yeah. So sound healing. So there's probably tones, very specific tones that are related to this.
Tones and words as well.
Yeah, and words.
A vocalic consonantal type of language, but it is one that we may not know here. And in fact, I think it's what's called the language of the metals. Because the language of the metals is, they hold, like the stone people, they hold the memories of the earth. The metals hold the memories of the earth. And they also are the language, and this is from esotericists, I don't know this personally, but it also is the language of life between death and rebirth. Okay, so I forget where all that was going.
Okay, where does that come from? The language between death and rebirth and the metals. Where is this all coming from? Anthroposophy? Possibly?
Some of it is anthroposophy, but some of it is also I can't remember the name of the person. William Pelican, I think, or Pelican, I think it is Pelican. And then this also comes through Lakota work. Lakota.
Okay.
And the Lakota have a very and the Navajo actually have a very interesting origin.
Okay.
It's a bit strange. Anyway, I don't, I'm not gonna, I don't know enough about that, but I just
Okay.
know that some of these things about metals I learned from Leon Sacarato, who was a Navajo elder who was sharing Lakota teachings.
Okay.
Mhm.
Now we're back to White Buffalo Woman there.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, and he was connected with her. He was.
Okay.
Who?
Yeah. A Leon Sacarato, the man who I learned, he taught to me about the turquoise,
Mhm.
and he also taught to me about gold and and silver and some of the other metals, and about the language that these metals carried. So that's one stream of it. And another stream of it is an anthroposophy. Steiner, I think, mentions it once.
Yeah, I just remember that when I was out in the Southwest there, and I used to have an old from green turquoise ring that I bought in Turkey, and they went, Turkey is all about turquoise. That's why it's called Turkey. And I went, oh, great, okay. So I had a green one, and I have a blue one, and they said, oh, the green is feminine and the blue is masculine.
I didn't
I
know
hadn't
that.
known
That's
that. And I went,
interesting.
okay, that makes sense. So they differentiated as a feminine turquoise and a masculine turquoise.
Just like with the meteorites, there's a masculine
Yes.
meteorite and a feminine
Yeah.
meteorite.
So I was told that when I was in the Southwest years
Yeah.
ago, buying
Yeah.
directly from Inzuni, actually, which is an old pueblo.
And that's true with the metals too. There are feminine metals and there are masculine metals.
Mhm.
Now, gold kind of stands between the two.
I thought it
It's
was
not on the
masculine.
feminine side. It's not on the masculine side. It's actually, it is a balancer. It is the balancer of polarities.
Because we're taught in almost every tradition that the gold is the masculine and the silver is the feminine.
Right.
So that's not so in what you're learning.
No,
Really?
no, no.
That's really
So what it's
embedded.
making me think, and these ideas have been coming up for me lately about really how, we were meant to be enlightened beings, and of course the aliens came here to mine the gold. That's what they came here
Right,
for. That's
Sarah.
evidenced, in Egypt, leaving people. You're just, we're just going to get here. You're just our slaves. You're going to mine gold for us. That's all. And so
Right.
that's why they wanted it too. I mean, they might have other properties that we don't even know about, but if you've ever held gold, I mean, I remember years ago I bought a 10-ounce bar, a little thing of gold. It was like, oh my God, like the vibration coming off that was like, oh no, now I know why everybody wants gold. Like it just felt like incredible. But there's also something about when I'm tuning in here. Now there has been sunspots and coronal mass ejections lately, and I think that working with the gold has to do with knowing when those things are happening. I think I've mentioned this before.
Oh, right. That makes sense
Eclipses,
too.
working with those coronal mass ejections, somehow being so tuned in that you would know,
Yep.
like a mother who's so in tune with her baby, exactly when it needs to go to the bathroom or it's hungry. Like if you were that tuned in, you would feel that energy coming, like a rumble, or there's going to be an earthquake, or like animals do that, right? So I would think that people that are really aligned with the earth and the sun would know, and there would be a kind of tuning into that energy, because if you see it, now they got pictures, the plasma hurls way out in space, right? So it's obviously you can gather that energy then,
Now,
I would think.
Now, and yeah, exactly. And the thing that's so interesting about these embodied parthenogenetic women, right? One of the reasons why people have trouble conceiving today, I mean, and I know I've dealt with this myself but we're too intellectual. Okay, we have like the gold process, if you want to put it that way, the sun process is about intellectual consciousness. It is.
so
But
that's
what
very
these
masculine.
parthenogenetic women were able to do was able to bring that into the body, so that it wasn't about, enlightenment like that. It was actually a process of embodiment is the best word, of bringing this gold process into their bodies. Yeah.
So can I interrupt for a sec on that?
Yeah, sure.
So what I'm remembering is that I was learning about the torus is about how that cosmic and the sun reaches us is that the sun is pulling in with its torus, the cosmos, and then spitting that out to Earth together with its own goldness. So we're just picking it up in the torus, like it comes from the cosmos to the sun, to the Earth, to us.
If and these women were aligned enough, they were able to access the horizontal energies directly.
That's what we have to learn to do.
Solar power.
Yes, it's solar power. Now, the moon is very important.
Yeah, I want to know about the moon and all that karma.
For those of us who are not in that stream, the moon actually enables the child to come into the womb, because the moon gives, it's almost like it gives the backup in order to be able to allow the child to come in, even though we don't have all the gold forces at work or at play or whatever we want to say in our conception process and the gestation.
So is this why the children that aren't born parthenogenically, like I'm beginning to think that in the midst of time, we were only born parthenogenically, because the only reason for having a child to bring a soul to Earth is to bring an enlightened soul to Earth. So I don't think there was even any male-female relation in that way.
Well, in anthroposophy, we are headed back. They use that word, back to androgyny. But we have to really pass through our appropriate, we can't just do that like with AI.
Right.
We're heading back toward that.
So their definition of androgyny is like your whole and you're kind of complete inside of yourself, right?
That's
okay. So there was other questions that came up here, because I know the moon also has this thing about being a false thing, and you know what I mean, like not real, and in astrology it's connected to karma, the womb, the unconscious, all of that stuff, and throughout time. There was something else that I wanted to, so it's like another form of alchemy. So, but what we traditionally, it's turning lead into gold. Maybe there's another form of alchemy, and they overlaid Saturn, lead, limitations, obstacles. It's man-made, Saturn,
heavy
into gold. But Saturn, I believe, was originally the Great Mother. So all they did is flip it, like they flipped everything, like all the double entendres and things like that, right? They used the same words, but they changed them.
Yeah, Saturn was the matrix in which we were all, first brought into being.
Right.
It's an older idea. It's almost like it's and unfortunately, like with all things that are very ancient, if they're picked up and they're twisted and they're brought into our times, they can enslave us.
Right.
So I think that Saturn is definitely connected with lead. But lead is a very interesting metal in that it really is, it treats addictions. Like in homeopathic anthroposophical medicine, it treats addiction. It treats obsessions of the mind.
Okay.
So, and of course, if lead poisoning affects our nervous system, but it's it's used as a treatment. It can be used for treatment for nervous system disorders, but
in very microscopic, right? Like in a more
very homeopathically, homeopathically, definitely not, ingested, like.
So
but
wanted to say in relation to the sun that I was just watching a David Wilcock broadcast recently, and he is all about that 24, 25 is going to be the solar maximum. Like there's going to be all kinds of what do you call that, surface flares, and that
coronal mass ejections,
solar
flares,
so that will
well,
really,
there's different theories about that cycle, but it's also big planetary change ups during those years as well. And also there's an Indian guru who says that we're actually reaching like, you know, a yuga, that somebody miscalculated that it's going to be a little mini age of light in the midst of this big Kali yuga for a couple hundred years or something like that. So I don't know. Anyway, but how to use the sun now. So you do always necessarily need that light, you know, you need the power of the sun, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But if there's too much light in the womb of a type that is not embodied, then there are difficulties with conception. There are.
Right. Right.
So if you're doing all sorts of spiritual practices, blah, 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 and all this kind of thing, you don't necessarily, and they're not feminine, and they're not balanced between the masculine and the feminine. You're bringing too much light in a way into the womb, which, and then they of that type that's not been passed through the whole, you know, heart womb nexus and luminous structure and all this sort of thing, and you're bringing it in vertically when actually it's a horizontal process.
So this whole thing about Maureen connecting with the horizontal, that's a huge missing part of this. That
it is.
Get originally.
It is huge what you've discovered, Maureen, with that.
But it was all out there. I think everyone was. I mean, the Christian cross has got a horizontal. So.
Oh yeah, like when I did that retreat there at your place in November of 2019, I mean, that was really all about trying to reclaim the horizontal energies of community, which are also very important. But I mean, just so we start to get to be aware of how they work, human to human. But I mean, like, they are a symbol or a representation of cosmic energies too, in connection with the earth. So I mean, there's a whole the cross, and the cross has a horizontal arm, yes, for sure. I mean, in fact, it has a whole
two, right?
That's two, that's right, or three even.
One for the heart, one for the womb. Was it?
Yeah, there were three. Like I remember even talking with Cindy about that many years ago. Yeah, so there are three or areas where the horizontal is feeding into our being, and you see that too in the Kabbalah,
right?
You know.
So what happened? It was just, again, like, it was just ignored and pushed aside because we all wanted to be individuals. Is that right?
I don't know why it had happened, Maureen. I think
it's the masculine.
I think it's just that domineering, the dominance model, you know what I mean? Like, it's all the sun, you know? And everybody just, nope, the earth was not considered spiritual enough. This is the lower level, you know what I mean?
We're talking about horizontal and vertical channels.
Yeah, but the horizontal is related to the earth. So it all has to relate to the feminine.
It has to do with the sun energies coming into the earth through the torus, right? And like and also all the other planets are involved with that too, because the sun, I mean, it's, nobody likes to hear this type of thing, but the sun is the master mistress of the other planets, right? The way it is now, all the planets basically pass through the moon to the child. That's how it is now, the way children are normally conceived now in our time. All the planets are passed through the moon, because the moon has sufficient formative forces to allow for a physical incarnation on the earth. Right? That's why, as I said before, there's too much light in people's wombs and it's not of an embodied type. There's nothing forms.
It's too burned out, kind of, right?
It's just too burned out. And it also just becomes about energy circulating around. It can't actually, you know.
So is this a bad thing that the planets are going through the moon?
No, it's what we need for now. It's what we need. It's what we need. And I think that it's just the way it is. Like that's allowed the earth, it's allowed us to continue to procreate and to exist as a species on planet Earth. But
So are you saying that at one point there was no moon?
no, there was no moon at one time. In fact, there's a whole race in Greek mythology called the Proselenes. They're called the people of before the moon, Selene, Selena being the moon. There's stories of that all around the world. So there was a time when there was no moon.
Would that suggest that that would be the time when we were more parthenogenic? Because we bypassed the karma of the moon.
Right.
So why did the moon get saddled with being the karmic holder, and where did that come from? This around why the moon was created, and you know what I mean?
I don't know. And I mean, again, question all of these things. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm just this part, that is very anthroposophical, that part about the moon holding.
Right.
But there's also in the traditions, there's always this sense that the moon is sort of the mothering. It is the grandmother. It's the one that, you know, that allows you to have a relationship with the earth. I mean, even in astrology, what's your moon sign? What is it?
Right.
Yeah. What is it?
Oh, okay. It's Sagittarius.
Yeah, but what is the significance of the moon sign?
Oh, the moon. The moon represents your mother, right? The moon represents the womb, the unconscious, your emotional needs, what makes you feel secure, what makes you feel safe, you know. It represents your roots, your childhood, your ancestors, you know, the unconscious, the dream world, everything that's not solid or, you know, mystical. It's kind of related to all those things, right? Where the sun is daylight consciousness, the moon is the night, right? So traditionally associated with everything feminine, right?
To me, it has to do with things that, as you say, are unconscious. It also has to do with becoming a soul on the planet, a soul.
Right. So but, yeah, in traditional astrology, it would have to do with your karma, right? Because the nodes of the moon are actually what's karmic, not the moon itself.
Right. It's the nodes.
It's the nodes.
Yeah.
So that's, you know, that's what creates eclipses. That's why I said, I believe that a lot of this had to do with timing of eclipses, and that's why they created those big Stonehenge or big stone calendars, so they would know, oh, here's an eclipse coming, here's when the planets line up, you know, the earth is lined up with the sun on the equinoxes, on the solstices, you know what I mean? Those were also, everybody would be ready to align at those times.
That's part of it.
Yeah.
Part of it.
I know, and I think that's very important because that's something that's been missed in a lot of literature about it. It's just the way it's presented, even amongst alternative historians, it's presented as always in this groovy that they all were able to have this knowledge, and just for the fun of it, they you know, they did this, but actually it had practical significance.
Right.
Yeah. It's very masculine interpretations.
They are.
Yeah.
It's like knowledge for the sake of knowledge. I mean, for its own sake. It was very much about how we were going to live in communion with everything around us,
right,
in alignment with these things,
right.
So, you know,
right, and everybody had common sense. I think that's the thing. Everything had a practical purpose, right? I think because we, you know, nobody has common sense these days. It's like, yeah, they were always participating. I was taught with the turning of the wheel of the year, but again, if it had to do with aligning with these specific planetary or solar energies, because that would be a major time to conceive. And that would make sense, Maureen, that women would not be fertile all the time. It would only be at these specific points.
Exactly.
And that would ensure whatever survival or your best chance to bring in an avatar, you would definitely want to be aligned at those times.
In fact, even in some Northern European cultures, the only time they ever worked, they had conception was at the time of the vernal equinox.
Right.
So then maybe a lot of those stone places, boats, are parthenogenic, like where they anchored in, where they actually did their meditations to self-conceive.
Well, the dolmen was connected. Like, go back to your picture that you sent me of the white buffalo woman under the dolmen.
Remember when we went to Ireland, I had a dream of a big jug of milk being poured over a dolmen.
See, she's under a dolmen.
Oh, did you just make that, Maureen?
Yeah, just after this
Okay.
Linda
So,
came.
I mean, I know you did some work on dolmens. You went to Ireland. Is it clear what the dolmens were for?
No, we're just discussing it now.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that they were part of this process, that they were places to go to be next to the stone energies at key times of the year, or at times when the cosmos was auspicious.
Right.
You know, in fact, those stories still remain in Ireland, that there are certain stones that women were supposed to go to lie upon if they wanted to get pregnant.
Right.
Really? Well, there
yes.
you go.
Yes,
Those
like
stories still exist.
Gugan Barra was one of those places, the island of Gugan Barra, which is an ancient Druidic site. This was a place where women would go to lie on the stones, and the stone had an angle to it, just like a dolmen. And they would go there to conceive.
So that's really significant, that I had the dream of the huge jug of milk being poured on the dolmen. Somehow.
Yeah.
But also, Maureen, you know, I would just say that when you said that, it reminds me, because you're dealing with big, long periods of time, that the pouring is the symbol of the constellation Aquarius.
Yeah, right.
And also in Glastonbury, you know, it's all aligned with these constellation ancient markings around Glastonbury. So it could point to that last age of Aquarius, which we're just entering now, which was 25,000 plus years ago.
Yeah.
Right.
And you know, it also too, it's there's so much in Irish culture that is about the cow, the bow, the bowan, the Milky Way, the Boyne River, the Bowan, the bow, it means the cow's way, the Bowan, the Boyne River.
The Boyne.
Yeah. So yeah, it's the milk of the cow, and it's the Milky Way across the sky, and all of those things follow the trajectory of the Milky Way, and all of, you know, it's just they were very good they were scientists in the true sense of the word. These people, they really observed, they noticed, they knew when things were auspicious and would work, and they knew when things would not work. They were very good at that type of science. So that's what all of these stone circles were.
And the milk is this extremely divine substance. Again, it's kind of downplayed, just, you know, but I remember, I'm sure, do you remember having a drink of your own milk when you were nursing?
Oh yeah, incredibly sweet and so alive. It was delicious, right?
It was like champagne.
Oh, it was like, yeah, totally alive and
it
amazing.
was all
like,
bubbly.
Wow. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a very sacred substance.
Right.
And you know, milk and honey, there's a reason why those were chosen to be a sign of abundance and plenty and wonderful life on earth. You see, it's about making life on earth. That's the stream of this. It's not about, you know, going off into space like, you know, Bezos or Elon Musk.
Right.
It has to do with about making conditions good for life on earth.
Yes.
The land of milk and honey.
Yeah, to make it the land of milk and honey, to realize its reality of that, of being that. Yeah, so all the whole birth process, and I could go more into the whole thing about the amniotic sac and the yolk and the placenta and all these things. The only thing I would say about the placenta, let me just make sure I've said what. Okay, the placenta on the womb side of things is, as I mentioned, holds the spiritual being of the embryo. It carries the divine spirit of the child, unmitigated by karma. Okay.
So what does the blood?
Now on the uterine wall side of it, okay, the placenta connects the child through the mother to the world outside, to what she eats, drinks, and her feelings. It connects her to the metals in her blood. So this is where we're getting into the parthenogenesis, because those women were able to direct the gold process predominantly as the master mistress of all the metals in that developing embryo child, they were able to do that. Whereas we just have a mix of them. Okay, we don't, because we don't have the technology. We haven't, that's what we need to talk to Helen about. We don't have the,
Don't
we don't have
talk
the
too
tech.
fast.
Okay,
Because I'm missing, you're going too fast for me. Sorry, but
okay,
that was important.
all right. So the metals of the mother's blood are also coming into the placenta.
So can I ask what the blood from the woman's womb coming in from the torus, not her karmic blood?
All right, coming in from the torus, the placenta, okay, which is right around the developing cells, is carrying the divine spirit of the child.
Okay.
Is holding it.
Okay.
This is right in the beginning of conception.
Yes, and also, but actually, the placenta holds that until birth.
Mm-hmm.
Then also on the womb side, you have the amnion, the amniotic sac. And the amniotic sac is full of actually cosmic formative forces. All right, so all of the sacred geometry of the universe is in that amniotic sac.
Okay. So this is all anthroposophy? Was this Steiner?
Oh.
Sorry.
Yes, it is. No, it isn't actually.
Okay.
It's a combination.
Mm-hmm.
It's a combination of Paracelsus.
Okay.
And the stream of Paracelsus that was connected to the ancient midwives. Okay, the ancient wisdom, the ancient lore around. Okay.
Okay.
And then it's also Ita Wegman, who was a friend of Rudolf Steiner's.
Okay.
And a doctor.
Okay. All right. Mm.
Okay, and she
this through your own understanding, right?
And my own.
Yeah.
Yeah. But at some point, when you're talking about the placenta or the amniotic sac, you're talking about the physical things, but they are still conduits to this spiritual, right?
Yeah, they're physical.
Mm-hmm. So you're saying that the fluid is what carries the cosmic more so than the actual womb blood of the placenta.
Yes. Yeah, because it's picking up, it's in the womb space, it's in the void of the womb.
Yeah.
And it's actually picking up the cosmic formative forces and the sacred geometry through that void space.
The amniotic fluid.
The amnion fluid does.
Okay.
Now the altonoid, which is next to the uterine wall. Okay, so the amnion is actually floating out in the womb initially. This is in the first few days of the altonoid, which later becomes the yolk. Okay. That is connected very much to the blood of the mother.
Oh,
right, to the blood.
Okay.
But the parthenogenetic women were able to make it entirely really about womb blood, not they were able to make the womb blood the dominant thing, not the karmic blood.
Gotcha. Okay. So it's like they can alternate a current almost.
It's like an alternator current. Yeah.
Okay. But the interesting thing is the gold particles in your blood. I know in like Indian astrology, they eat gold and so I would think that the gold. There's a whole thing about focusing on the gold itself. The gold itself has these properties, right? As well.
Gold has the properties. That's right. So in the parthenogenetic woman, the gold processes are dominant. I mean, they basically become the filter or the lens through which the other metals work and move. And the other metals are important because the other metals actually help form the organs.
Mm-hmm.
And they're also connected with the planets because of that. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Like the planets and all these things.
Right.
So they also are connected with the formation of the organs of perception. So our ears, our eyes, our tongue, all these things, all right? So the metals, all the other metals are important. It's just that in the in the history of the parthenogenetic woman, it's the gold process that basically affects all of those other metallic processes and turns them toward the gold, right? It turns them toward the gold that's in them.
And what's the gold symbolize?
The gold is that ability to balance the polarities and not fall into one of the poles. It's the ancient human being before it became polarized and caught in the ego.
Right.
Okay, and
so it's like that would represent the fall. You know what I mean? Caught in the ego, or what they call the devil, or something.
Exactly.
Like that.
That's thank you, Tara. Yeah, that really helps. All right, so that's the picture. I know I wish I had something more visual, but I'm not an artist, so I'm counting on you, Maureen, to be basically
but it is the physical gold. Yeah, but it is the physical gold.
It is physical gold
as the actual transmitter, not just. I mean, it's metaphorical, but it's also real.
It's real.
It's not this necessarily the sun. Like, it's not about light. It's about gold.
Yeah, but they're considered to be one. Do you know what I mean? Like when people, you know, like what represents, it's like in the plant world, you know, it's like you want stuff for your lungs. The mullein looks like the inside of your lungs. Therefore, you know, like it's like light cures light kind of. Do you know what I mean?
Well, it's a golden color, but I don't think it's Karen.
It is. No, the gold itself is a transmitter. Like you're dealing with going from a spiritual into a physical. You need physical properties to transduce or to transmute or whatever.
Let's just put it this way. It is a light that brings life. There is a light that kills. All right. This is a particular type of light that brings life.
Okay. So it's like back to the quadrant, you know, there's the good and bad light, good and bad dark, and the good and bad everything.
Yes.
Well, like Marcin said with the four twins.
The light is the life. The light is the life of all. Okay. The light is the life of all. It is the life light.
Okay.
Which we see at work in a plant, because a plant takes what we see as physical sunlight, okay, which is actually does kill. All right. But the plant is able to transform it through photosynthesis and through its processes into something that is life-giving.
So can you share how, just for maybe for me and viewers, the within the womb, how that gold and the darkness works together? I mean, because
it brings,
all light.
There's a balancing between a light and dark in this whole process that I'm sorry my camera's following. It's held on by tape, so I'm sorry for your viewers. They're not gonna be able to see my face. But
just push back.
There's a balancing between the light and the dark in this whole process, right? And in these beings, really, in order for anybody to come into the womb, we all have been protected because there has to be a balancing of the beneficial dark and the beneficial light. It's the only way we come in. Otherwise, it wouldn't happen.
Right.
Somehow, even in those of us who are not parthenogenetically inclined or not able to do that, we still have in our biology the ability to do this, to have this balance between the beneficial dark and the beneficial light, which allows life to come into being. So everything is geared toward that. I mean, if you believe in like the spirit there's some hierarchies, if you want to call them, or spirit beings out there that are watching out for us out there to make sure this is actually still happening. Right. So there's always a balance between the beneficial dark and the beneficial light. I would say that was even the case with these parthenogenetic processes as well. Yeah. So, because we have to be formed in the dark. We have to be formed in the dark. the light has now been transformed into a liquid chemical form in the blood. It's now the sun process, the gold process is now a liquid chemical form. It's water-based. It's a water-based form, right? At this point, the light has become water. You know, even our words are transformed light into sound. So light is very much, these are all beneficial light. This is all beneficial light because it's being transformed and transmuted into forms that we can use organically. When light is not being transformed into something that can be used organically, it kills. It kills.
You could try just moving back and then you don't have to keep adjusting.
All right. Anyway, I'm going to have to wrap this up soon because my voice is starting to go.
Going. Okay. And we did seem to go over, we're almost an hour and a half here, Maureen. So somehow it just keeps recording. You're very lucky. Zoom is on your side there.
Yeah, maybe just because of the three of us. But didn't know. I thought it was more expensive and it's not. So
I wanted to show you too. Here's a stone person. This is a stone person in New Zealand. I don't know if you can see the face in that.
Yeah.
This is huge. This is at a place called Castle Rock on South Island. I mean, so the stone people, this whole lineage, white buffalo woman, the North, the ancestors, the memory of the earth, everything like that is intimately connected to this gold process, which is part of this ability to conceive without polarity, which is very ancient.
Okay, the key is without polarity.
Without duality. I mean, I don't mean
polarity.
Duality, without duality.
Yeah. So as you know, everything is whole, you just bring it straight in a whole piece, right?
That's right.
Yeah. Okay.
So the gold process kind of helps that to happen.
It does, because it's all about being able to, it holds the balance between poles. That's what it does. That's why gold was so important. I mean, in alchemy, because it was like this thing that could take away, it could take away not the illusion, but the damage of duality. And that's why, as Tara said, it was mind. It was mind. Because these people who were coming in here to mine the earth for gold, they were damaged. They were mechanical. They had become mechanical, and they needed the gold to recover who they were. They needed it. They needed this planet to feed off of in order to still stay alive, and they still do.
Right.
Now, would they be?
They can't kill us so much that they don't have that anymore. They need us to be, some of us, to be alive.
And you're talking about the gold as we have processed it through our bodies.
Yes, it's in us. It's in us.
It's in us, yes, but it's mainly digging it up from the earth physically.
But they wanted to dig it up out of the earth. They wanted to extract it. They're the ones who set in motion our entire extraction economy of taking things out of the earth.
Yeah.
Because actually, we all know gold. Gold is in us. It's in our very blood. We don't need to dig it up out of the earth. We need to be able to communicate with gold through the trees, through the roots of the trees. That's why the language of the Celtic Druids was a tree language. It was a metal language. It was the language of life between death and rebirth. But they got to it through the trees. They knew it through organic systems. The aliens come in, or whoever they are, I don't know what they are, they come in and they extract because they're mechanical. They're not organic.
Right.
Exactly. And that reminds me that you said way back, well, in the introduction of my book, you shared a little bit about, in the midst of time, like perhaps we were one plan that got divided into one a gendered lineage and one a non-gendered lineage. And it's like the non-gendered lineage is what's you're talking about. They need what the gendered lineage has.
Right. Yes. Even though we look like we've fallen into duality,
Mm-hmm.
we still have the life power of polarity. They don't. They
Right.
don't. They're machines.
Right. Okay. So I'm missing this whole thing about non-gendered lineage now, or gendered lineage. Sorry, what was that again?
No. Well, we way back in the mists of time, there was in human development,
Right.
something splintered off from
Oh,
us
okay.
that was
Right.
not was non-gendered. And Maureen and I were saying maybe this is some of the ETs, maybe this is some of the extraterrestrials, like the Greys, possibly.
Although I do want to just briefly mention that I've
But
been following.
not all of them are negative. They're not. They're actually the thing. We can't vilify them. Okay, but they do need us.
Mm-hmm.
And the way we're treating this planet right now is actually making things worse for them than even it is for us. That's why they're coming to see us.
Right.
They're trying to say, wake up, people.
Right.
You're messing around.
So in other words, there's an exchange between us. It's not one way.
There's an exchange. It's not one way. We need them, okay, to wake up, and they need us, yes, to be able to fulfill their purpose.
Well, I'm really impressed with everything we're talking about because, again, I'm following these guys because they're so passionate and dedicated. Like, for instance, Stephen Greer, Dr. Stephen Greer.
Yes, oh yes.
He's trying so hard, but he doesn't know any of this. And I wish that we could reach these guys because they're going in circles because they don't have the feminine.
I like Greer too. He's very positive.
Yeah.
I think sometimes he doesn't realize there also are negative ones as well.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't even know this guy. I haven't even checked him out. So
he's really working hard to try and get people to make positive contact.
Okay. Positive contact. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Disclosure.
So I'm still this whole thing, because the whole thing about gender, non-gender, all that, it's kind of like, again, it's a twisted form of this, because I can't stand it now. They say people who have cervixes, people who have wombs, they're absolutely annihilated and can't even use the word woman anymore. It is disgusting.
No, this is not the way it was meant to happen.
No.
We do have to pass through this period of polarity. We have to make our polarities generative. Once we've done that, and those capacities, we move to, but we can't do it like AI.
Right.
Okay. It's not an ideal that we want.
So you think androgyny is a good thing?
Eventually, in the appropriate evolutionary stage of human development, yes, but not at this time.
Okay.
No. And it's
Right.
premature, and it's like ramming something through a narrow entrance to just get what you want.
Mhm.
And that's what unfortunately, that's what this whole cabal is about. They're about speeding things up. They're about ramming things through. That's the nature of them. So, I mean, no, it's not appropriate right now at all.
So
I'm not saying I've never been against. I knew people who were transgender when I was quite young, before it became a thing. I'm not against any of that. I understand people have that.
Right. Yeah, no, I understand that as well.
But I don't think it should be pushed as an ideology,
Mhm. Yeah.
any more than being a woman
Well,
should be pushed as an ideology. You know what I mean? It's just,
Right.
it's not appropriate.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, no, because there's a whole other agenda, and that's what I feel when you say that. You know what I mean? It's like, no, that's not right. I understand whole androgyny means whole and complete inside of yourself. Yes, absolutely, each being,
Yes.
right? There can still be apparent genders to identify each other, because you still need those complementary pairs. That's all.
Right now, our
Right.
androgyny,
But you still have to acknowledge.
right now, our androgyny is mostly a psychic phenomenon. Not with everyone. Some people are too gendered, and that's always been the case. I mean, First Nations
Right.
people knew that too. But
Mhm,
it's
mhm.
just that, but most of us are living in a body that is either male or female.
Right.
Our psyche can be androgynous. In fact, that's healthy. That's what individuation is about. It's about balancing the masculine and feminine. But the body we have is gendered.
Right.
For the most part.
Right. Most people don't want to recognize that now, which is like, again, they want to negate the body. And that's the opposite of where we're supposed to go.
And we're getting into we're getting into the AI agenda, because they don't want us to have bodies either, because they don't. They're not, those ones who were split off and were the non-gendered ones who became machines, who became mechanical. They don't want the human being to have a soul.
Right.
You have to have a body if you're going to have a soul. You have to be embodied. You know, you can't, there's no soul if you don't have a body, really.
But that's what people forget. They think the soul is omnipotent, it's eternal.
Yeah, but that's a lot of Gnostic stuff, and that's stuff that came out, people would look at Christianity a little bit more, and Judaism, because actually they have answers to that kind of stuff.
Okay.
That were really worked out, not just for the sake of being, hey, we're different, but they actually really did work out. The soul had to connect with the body. It's so strange to me how Christianity, because of what it became so anti-body, because it's actually very pro-body.
Right.
So the integrity of the body needing to be there for the soul,
right?
and that the soul could not really exist without the body. That's resurrection of the body was important. Very, very Greek, which was it's like this idea that the soul could somehow exist separated from the body. I mean, even if you believe in reincarnation, you believe that the soul carries an imprint of the body between incarnations. The body is still there. This idea that the soul can sort of float around and, be completely disembodied is very Greek. Yeah. So,
and that's what our civilization is based on. Is that for example,